a young man screamed from the darkness of a deep well. Above him, 11 shadows stood looking down. His own brothers. Just hours earlier, they had walked together under the same burning sun. They had eaten bread from the same table. They had called each other family. But now, the brothers whispered among themselves, their voices cold and angry.
What shall we do with him?
At the bottom of the pit, Joseph could hear them arguing. His heart pounded as the reality slowly settled in. His own brothers had betrayed him, but none of them could have imagined that the young man crying in the darkness that day would one day become the second most powerful ruler in Egypt. This is the story of Joseph, the dreamer who went from a pit to a prison and finally to a palace. Joseph was the son of Jacob, a shepherd who lived with his large family in the land of Canaan. Among Jacob's 12 sons, Joseph held a special place in his father's heart. Jacob loved him deeply, perhaps more than the others. One day he even gave Joseph a beautiful robe, a garment woven with bright colors that made him stand out wherever he went. But what Jacob saw as love, the other brothers saw as favoritism, and their jealousy began to grow. Joseph was young, confident, and different from his brothers. But what truly stirred their anger were the dreams. Joseph began having strange dreams, dreams that seemed to reveal the future. One morning he shared one of those dreams with his brothers. "In my dream," Joseph said, "we were binding bundles of grain in the field. Suddenly my bundle stood upright, and all of yours gathered around and bowed down to it." The brothers stared at him in disbelief.
Do you think you will rule over us?
They snapped. Their jealousy grew even stronger. But Joseph had another dream. This time he dreamed that the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to him. When he told his family, even his father became uneasy. Yet Jacob quietly wondered if the dreams might one day come true. The brothers, however, felt only rage. One day, Joseph's brothers traveled far from home to graze their father's flocks, near the city of Shechem. After some time passed, Jacob grew worried. "Joseph," he said, "go and see how your brothers are doing. Bring word back to me." Joseph obeyed and set off across the hot desert land. Hours later, as the brothers worked in the distance, one of them noticed a figure approaching. "It's him," one brother muttered. "Here comes the dreamer." The group gathered together, anger boiling in their hearts. "Let's kill him," one said. "Then we will see what becomes of his dreams." But one brother, Reuben, hesitated.
Do not take his life. Just throw him into this empty pit.
His plan was to rescue Joseph later when the others were gone. When Joseph finally arrived, he greeted them warmly. But before he could say another word, the brothers grabbed him. They tore the colorful robe from his body. Joseph struggled and cried out in confusion, but the brothers dragged him to the edge of a deep, dry well. Then they pushed him in. Joseph fell hard onto the rocky ground below. The brothers looked down at him as his voice echoed from the darkness. Then they sat down to eat as if nothing had happened. As the brothers sat nearby, a caravan of traders passed along the road. They were merchants traveling to Egypt with camels loaded with goods. One of the brothers had an idea.
Why kill him? Let us sell him to the traders instead.
The others agreed. They pulled Joseph out of the pit and handed him over to the merchants. For 20 pieces of silver, Joseph was sold as a slave. As the caravan slowly moved away toward Egypt, Joseph looked back one last time at the brothers he trusted. They did not look back. To hide their crime, the brothers dipped Joseph's robe in goat's blood and brought it to their father. Jacob recognized the robe instantly.
My son! My son!
"My son! My son!" he cried. Believing Joseph had been killed by a wild animal, Jacob mourned deeply. Meanwhile, Joseph was carried farther and farther away from home. When the caravan reached Egypt, Joseph was sold again, this time to a powerful officer named Potiphar, who served Pharaoh himself. Although Joseph had lost everything, he refused to give up. He worked diligently in Potiphar's household, showing wisdom and responsibility in everything he did. Soon Potiphar noticed. Before long, Joseph was placed in charge of the entire household. Everything seemed to be improving, but trouble was waiting. Potiphar's wife began to take notice of Joseph. Day after day, she tried to persuade him to betray his master.
How could I do such a wicked thing?
You cannot reject me again. I deserve you.
I cannot betray my master.
One day, she caught hold of his garment and demanded that he stay with her. Joseph quickly pulled away and ran from the house. Furious, she shouted for the servants and accused Joseph of attacking her. When Potiphar heard the accusation, his anger burned. Without investigation, Joseph was thrown into prison. Once again, Joseph lost everything. In the cold darkness of the prison, Joseph might have felt abandoned. But even there, his character stood out. The prison warden soon noticed Joseph's honesty and wisdom. Eventually, Joseph was given responsibility over the other prisoners. One day, 2 new prisoners arrived, servants of Pharaoh himself. They both had troubling dreams and were deeply disturbed. Joseph listened carefully.
Interpretations belong to God. Tell me your dreams.
After hearing them, Joseph explained their meanings. Within days, the dreams came true exactly as Joseph had said.
Remember me when you return to Pharaoh's service.
I will.
Pharaoh's service. But time passed, and Joseph was forgotten. Years went by. One night, Pharaoh himself began having troubling dreams. In one dream, 7 healthy cows were suddenly devoured by 7 thin, starving cows. In another, 7 full ears of grain were swallowed by 7 thin ears. None of Pharaoh's advisors could explain the meaning. Then the servant who had once shared a prison with Joseph remembered.
There is a man held in prison who can interpret your dreams.
A man in prison? Bring him to me at once!
Pharaoh immediately ordered Joseph to be brought before him. Standing before the ruler of Egypt, Joseph listened carefully as Pharaoh described his dreams. Then Joseph spoke. The dreams mean the same thing, he explained.
There will be 7 years of great abundance across the land, but after that will come 7 years of severe famine.
I understand. Your wisdom is divine.
Joseph suggested a plan.
Store grain during the years of plenty, so the people will survive the years of famine.
Pharaoh was amazed. Can we find anyone like this man? He asked his advisors. Then Pharaoh turned to Joseph.
You shall be in charge of my kingdom. Only the throne itself will be greater than you.
In a single day, the prisoner became the 2nd most powerful man in Egypt. Just as Joseph predicted, the years of famine arrived. Food became scarce across the lands. Even Joseph's family in Canaan began to suffer. So his brothers traveled to Egypt to buy grain. When they stood before Joseph, they bowed low before him. But they did not recognize the powerful ruler standing before them. Joseph recognized them immediately. The dreams he had as a boy were now coming true. After testing their hearts, Joseph finally revealed the truth.
I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?
The brothers were terrified, but Joseph spoke gently.
I am Joseph. Do not be afraid, for God has sent me here to preserve life.
Joseph forgave his brothers and brought his entire family to live safely in Egypt. Joseph's life was filled with betrayal, suffering, and injustice. Yet every hardship became part of a greater purpose. From a pit, to a prison, to a palace, the dreamer never stopped believing. And in the end, the dreams came true.